Imagine you wake up tomorrow and every single decision, what to eat, who to text, even the exact words you're about to speak, has already been set in motion long before you feel yourself choosing. Would you still feel free? Pause a second and really notice your body right now. Take a breath. Did you choose to inhale at that exact moment, or did the prompt for me nudge your brain before you even realized? Today we're starting a journey into one of the oldest and most mind-bending questions humans have ever asked. Do we actually have free will, or is the sense of freedom just a brilliant illusion created by the brain? Stay with me, because by the end of this video you might never experience your own choices in quite the same way. Let's start small. Think back to this morning. Maybe you poured coffee instead of tea. Why? Habit? Craving? The smell of roasted beans? Here's the twist. Neuroscience suggests that the cascade of neurons that led to that "I want coffee" a moment began firing seconds before you became aware of wanting anything. Your conscious mind is like a sportscaster narrating a game that's already in progress. By the time you say, "Yeah, I've decided," the brain has already started the play. Sound far-fetched? Let's unpack that. I want you to pick a number between 1 and 10. Don't overthink it. Got it? Why that number? Was it truly free, or were you nudged by subtle influences? My tone, your favorite digits, the fact that I even said a between 1 and 10? Psychologists have repeated versions of this experiment for decades, and patterns always emerge. Humans favor certain numbers. We think we're unpredictable, but we're not. This is just a playful example, but it opens a door to a deeper question. If small choices are predictable, what about the big ones? Career moves, falling in love, moral decisions? Philosophers have wrestled with this puzzle for thousands of years. The Greek atomists argued that everything follows from the motion of atoms, pure determinism. The Stoics believed in fate but also in cultivating inner freedom through virtue. Fast forward to today and we're still debating, is the universe a giant clockwork, or do we carve out real autonomy somewhere in that machinery? And just when philosophers thought they had the upper hand, modern neuroscience dropped a bombshell. In the early 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet designed an experiment so simple and so unsettling that it still dominates free will debates. Participants watched a dot circling a clock face. Their task: flex a wrist whenever they felt like it and note the exact position of the dot when the urge arose. While they waited, EEG electrodes recorded their brain activity. The result? A distinctive spike of neural activity. The readiness potential, EAR, consistently appeared about 300 milliseconds before participants reported the conscious urge to move. In other words, the brain started the action before the person decided to act. That's like discovering the script of your life is already written a split second ahead of your awareness. Wait, are we just robots? Before you panic, let's slow down. A third of a second isn't eternity, and critics point out that flexing a wrist is a trivial movement, not a complex life choice. But Libet's experiment wasn't a one-off. Later fMRI studies, like those by neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes, pushed the timeline further. They found patterns in the brain predicting a left or right-hand movement up to 7 seconds before a person reported making a decision. 7 seconds. That's an eternity in neuron time. If our brains are quietly deciding before we're aware, what does that say about free will? Think of a time you made a snap decision, maybe taking a different route home, texting someone out of the blue. Comment below. Do you believe that choice was truly free, or just a complex reaction to hidden causes? I read these comments, and your reflections might even shape part 2 of this video. Interestingly, Libet himself didn't believe his experiments killed free will. He proposed something he called a free won't, the ability of consciousness to veto an unconscious impulse after it starts. Maybe we can't initiate every action, but we can still stop it. That tiny window, between unconscious preparation and conscious veto, might be where freedom lives. Now we go deeper, into the lab and into the centuries-old arguments that still keep philosophers up at night. Since Benjamin Libet's experiment, technology has leapt ahead. Enter John Dylan Haynes and his team in Berlin. They put volunteers inside an fMRI scanner and asked them to press one of two buttons whenever they felt like it, left hand or right hand. Meanwhile, the scanner tracked activity across the entire brain. Here's the kicker. Patterns of neural activity in the frontopolar cortex and parietal regions predicted which button a participant would press up to 7 seconds before the person reported deciding. 7 seconds. Think about that. While you're watching me now, in the time it takes to hum the first bar of a song, your brain could already have it chosen as something long before you realize it. Critics, of course, raised eyebrows. Maybe these signals aren't true decisions, just biases or a draft's ear of a plan. But whether it's 300 milliseconds or 7 seconds, the direction is clear. Unconscious processes shape our actions before awareness kicks in. So what's happening in that quiet pre-decision time? Modern neuroscience paints a picture of the brain not as a single CEO, but as a committee of networks. The default mode network hums when you daydream. The executive network plans and reasons. The salience network flags what matters. Decisions bubble up from interactions among these systems, influenced by genetics, past experiences, hormones, even the bacteria in your gut. By the time their I choose a feeling arrives, the vote has already been tallied. Try this mini experiment. Next time you crave a snack, pause and ask yourself, why this craving, right now? You'll find stories, or I skipped lunch, or I love chocolate. But those are explanations after the fact, not the real-time cores. Now, let's widen the lens. Determinism is the idea that every event is the inevitable result of prior causes, atoms colliding, neurons firing, physics unfolding. If the universe were a perfect clock, and someone knew the position of every particle at this instant, they could predict the entire future. P.S. Simon Laplace imagined such a being in the 19th century, a Laplace demon. To the demon, your next word, next breath, next love story are already fixed. That sounds bleak, but it's also elegantly logical. If nothing comes from nothing, then every effect must have a cause. On the other side stand libertarian free will defenders, not the political party, philosophers. They argue that humans can originate actions independent of deterministic chains. Thinkers like Roderick Chisholm claimed we're not just links in a causal chain but a prime movers, able to start new causal sequences. Their challenge: how can something pop into existence without a cause and still be you? Randomness isn't freedom, it's just chance. So libertarians wrestle with explaining how genuine agency arises without collapsing into chaos. Then there's compatibilism, championed by thinkers like David Hume and later Daniel Dennett. Compatibilists say yes, the universe is causally ordered, but freedom isn't about breaking those laws. It's about acting according to your own reasons and desires, even if those reasons have causes. Example: if you choose to learn guitar because you love music, and no one is forcing you, that's free will, even if your love of music was shaped by childhood experiences and brain chemistry. Compatibilism shifts the question from metaphysics to psychology. Are you acting from internal motivations, or are you coerced? I'd love to know your instinct here. Are you team determinism, team libertarian, or team compatibilism? Drop a comment with your vote, and tell me why. I might feature some of your answers in the next episode. While philosophers debate, psychologists run experiments. Priming studies show that subtle cues, like words flashed too quickly to notice, can sway behavior. Framing effects reveal that how a question is worded changes the answer you think you will freely give. Implicit bias operates beneath awareness, shaping snap judgments. Your conscious narrative feels like the author, but it's more like the editor, tidying up after the subconscious writers have done the heavy lifting. Let's make it concrete with the famous trolley problem. A runaway trolley is heading toward 5 people tied to the track. You can pull a lever to divert it onto a side track, where it will kill one person instead. Most people say they'd pull the lever. But in a version where you must push a large man off a bridge to stop the trolley, most people refuse, even though the math is identical. Brain scans show different regions lighting up. Utilitarian reasoning battles emotional aversion. Your final decision emerges from that neural tug-of-war, not from a single free agent. Here's something to sit with. Even if every decision is shaped by prior causes, you are still the arena where those causes converge. Maybe freedom isn't about defying physics, but about understanding the forces at play so you can steer, like a surfer riding a wave you didn't create but can skillfully navigate. Across the world, every culture has wrestled with the question of destiny. Long before fMRI machines and EEG caps, humans created myths and spiritual systems to explain why life unfolds as it does. Ancient Greece, the Moirai, the three fates, spun, measured, and cut the thread of every life. Even Zeus, king of the gods, couldn't override them. To the Greeks, destiny wasn't just probable, it was absolute. Hindu philosophy, karma operates as a moral cause and effect engine. Your choices matter, but they are shaped by the karma you inherited from past actions, even past lives. Freedom and inevitability intertwine. Christian traditions, some branches emphasize free will. Humans must freely choose faith. Others highlight predestination, where God already knows every decision you will ever make. Debates raged for centuries between theologians like Augustine and Pelagius over how much agency humanity truly holds. Islamic thought, Qadar, divine decree, states that everything unfolds according to Allah's plan, yet believers are still urged to act righteously, creating a dynamic tension between fate and responsibility. Buddhism, here, the selfie is seen as an ever-changing process, not a permanent entity. If there is no fixed you, the question of free will transforms. What exactly is supposed to be free? These cultural narratives differ in style, but share a theme. They all seek to balance meaning with the sense that life follows patterns beyond our conscious control. Why does this matter outside of late-night philosophy debates? Because our entire system of justice is built on the assumption of personal responsibility. If someone commits a crime, we punish them because we believe they could have chosen differently. But if every action is the inevitable product of genes, upbringing, and neurochemistry, how fair is punishment? Some legal scholars argue we should pivot from retribution to rehabilitation and prevention. If a violent act is as mechanistic as a seizure, our response should focus on treatment and safeguarding society, not moral outrage. Consider the case of Charles Whitman, the 1966 Texas Tower shooter. An autopsy revealed a brain tumor pressing on his amygdala, an area tied to aggression. Would he have killed without that tumor? Where does culpability begin or end? These questions don't excuse harmful acts, but they challenge us to rethink justice through a scientific lens. Already, neuroscience is reshaping trials. Defense teams present brain scans to argue diminished responsibility. Judges weigh evidence of trauma or neurological disorders. But if every brain is a product of biology and environment, where do we draw the line? At what point does anyone have a normal irresponsibility? This is not just theory, it's policy, budgets, and lives. Here's a metaphor. Imagine life as a powerful river. You didn't create the current. Your genetic makeup, culture, and past experiences are the water's speed and shape. Free will might not mean building the river from scratch. It's more like steering a kayak. You can't stop the flow, but with awareness and skill you can avoid rocks, choose a smoother channel, or paddle harder when needed. Psychologist Viktor Frankl captured this idea in Man's Search for Meaning, written after surviving Nazi concentration camps. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Even when circumstances are fixed, our interpretation and reaction can be profoundly free. Here's something you can try tomorrow. Before every major action, sending a text, opening the fridge, checking social media, pause for just 2 seconds. Ask, why am I doing this right now? Notice if the impulse still pulls you or if the pause changes it. Then share your experience in the comments. Did you feel more in control, or did you notice how automatic many actions are? Modern habit research supports Libet's notion of veto power. Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet himself believed consciousness might not start actions but can stop them. This aligns with what psychologists call implementation intentions, pre-planned if-then statements like, if I crave a cigarette, I'll take 3 deep breaths first. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's braking system, activates to override impulses. Strengthening this system through mindfulness or cognitive behavioral techniques increases the space for deliberate choice. So maybe the deepest freedom isn't spontaneous action, but the capacity to refuse automatic ones. Some argue physics itself leaves room for unpredictability. Quantum mechanics shows events at subatomic levels are probabilistic, not strictly determined. Could that randomness rescue free will? Most physicists are skeptical. Random particle behavior doesn't magically grant conscious agency. A dice roll is unpredictable, but it isn't a free. Still, the quantum view reminds us the universe is not a simple clockwork. Reality might be more flexible and stranger than classic determinism allows. Suppose, for the sake of argument, that every decision is fully caused. Does that drain life of purpose? Not necessarily. Think of a symphony. Each note follows from the last according to musical rules, yet the performance can be moving and unique. Your life, too, can be meaningful precisely because it unfolds in a rich pattern of causes. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." Even if our will is shaped, our actions still define who we are. Right now, pause the video and write down one pivotal choice you've made in the last year. Then ask, what prior causes nudged me here? Where did I exert conscious veto or redirection? Share what you discover. This exercise isn't about proving or disproving free will. It's about seeing the intricate tapestry that we usually overlook. We've traveled from brain scans to ancient myths, from courtrooms to quantum physics. Whether you lean toward determinism, compatibilism, or something else entirely, one thing is clear: understanding the forces that shape us expands our ability to live intentionally. You've now explored brain scans, ancient philosophy, world religions, courtroom dilemmas, and even quantum physics. So what do we do with all this knowledge? Whether you lean determinist or compatibilist, one lesson stands out. Understanding the machinery of mind gives you more leverage over your own life. The very act of noticing your impulses changes them. Mindfulness research shows that observing thoughts and feelings activates the prefrontal cortex, giving you milliseconds, or sometimes seconds, of extra control. Try this simple practice. Name the urge. Instead of I'm stressed, say, stress is present. That tiny grammatical shift separates you from the passing storm and creates space to respond, not just react. If behavior is shaped by cues, redesign the cues. Place a water bottle on your desk to drink more. Hide the phone during deep work. Play upbeat music to boost mood. These small, deterministic tweaks steer the river of habits in directions you choose. It's engineering your future self rather than relying on pure willpower. Recognizing how much is driven by genetics, childhood, and circumstance fosters empathy. That friend who always runs late? Maybe their brain's time management circuits developed differently. The stranger who lashes out? Perhaps trauma wired their stress response. Seeing people as complex systems doesn't excuse harm, but it softens the quick judgments that poison relationships. Artists often describe a flow, a state where action feels effortless and self-consciousness disappears. Ironically, creativity may flourish when the sense of a controlling ego quiets down, when you let the subconscious committee do its work. Instead of I must create, think, let's see what emerges. Trusting the process can open surprising doors. If everything is caused, is personal growth pointless? Far from it. Growth is the unfolding of new causes you can set in motion. Therapy, education, a single conversation. You are both the product and the producer of causes for tomorrow. As philosopher William James put it, and my first act of free will shall be to believe in free will. Here's a closing experiment for one full day. Keep a choice journal. Each time you make a notable decision, jot down. What triggered it? Was there a pause? Did you feel the urge before the thought? At day's end, review the entries. Notice where you acted automatically, where you used a conscious veto, and where you surfed the current with intention. Share a highlight in the comments. Your insight could inspire someone else. Let's finish with a real-life illustration. In 2011, a man named Sam Harris, yes, the neuroscientist and writer, described sitting in a cafe watching people walk by. He suddenly felt a profound recognition. Every person he saw was living a life shaped by causes they didn't choose: birth, genes, chance encounters. Instead of despair, he felt compassion and clarity. Whether you agree with Harris or not, that moment captures a deeper truth. When you see the hidden threads, the world becomes less about blame and more about understanding. Before you click away, ask yourself, which idea from this journey challenged you the most? Where might you insert a free won't today, a single pause that shifts the next chain of events? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment, and your reflections are part of the conversation this channel is building. Perhaps we will never settle the debate over free will, but maybe that's the point. Life isn't a riddle to be solved once and for all, it's an experience to be lived with awareness. So keep noticing, keep questioning, because whether or not you are free in the cosmic sense, the practice of conscious living is freedom enough. If this journey expanded your mind, tap subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next exploration of psychology, philosophy, and science. And if you're ready for hands-on self-therapy tools, check out my ebook Power to Mend, link in the description. Thank you for watching.